I have to start this with I don't know, a bit of a complaint about the scientific news cycle.
Oh, yeah. What's on your mind?
It just feels like we get sold these mission accomplished moments, and then, a couple of years later, we find out we only just finished the prologue.
That is a very specific complaint. I think I know what brought this on.
You do. Remember a few years back, the headlines were just everywhere. Biology is solved. AlphaFold had arrived. It could predict the 3D structure of proteins. And the vibe was, well, that we could all pack up our pipettes and go home.
It was a massive moment, though. I mean, you can't downplay it. It changed everything for structural biology.
Oh, I'm not downplaying it. But if we solved it, why are we sitting here looking at this stack of papers about a completely new, massive model called AlphaGenome? If we know the shape of every protein, why do we need another AI to read the DNA? It feels like we bought the car, and now you're telling me we don't have the keys.
That is actually a surprisingly good analogy. Think of it this way. AlphaFold gave us the hardware.
The hardware.
Yeah, it showed us the chassis, the engine, the transmission, the static 3D shape of all the molecular machines. But knowing what an engine looks like doesn't tell you when to turn it on or how fast to rev it.
Or which cars belong on the highway versus a dirt road. So what AlphaGenome is the driver?
It's the software. It's the operating system. You see, your DNA is the code that decides when to build those AlphaFold proteins, how many to build, and crucially, in which cells. You have the same DNA in your brain as in your liver.
Right. Same instruction manual in every single cell.
Exactly. But your brain isn't full of liver enzymes. And, well, why is that? It's because the regulatory code, the software, is running a different program in each cell. AlphaFold tells you what the enzyme looks like. AlphaGenome's trying to tell you why it's there in the first place.
And to do that, they had to change everything.
Radically. They had to move from a problem of, let's call it geometry, to a problem of signal processing.
Signal processing. Okay, that sounds less like biology and more like electrical engineering or trying to tune an old radio.
Well, biology is engineering, just at a molecular scale.
Yeah.
And to really understand this shift from AlphaFold to AlphaGenome, you have to look at how the math itself changed. We aren't just upgrading the model here, we're asking a fundamentally different question.
Okay, well, let's set the baseline then. If we're moving away from the AlphaFold way of thinking, we need to remember how it actually worked. I just remember it was all about folding a string of beads into a complex 3D shape.
That's the core protein folding problem. The input was a sequence of amino acids, the output was a set of 3D coordinates. But the real secret sauce of AlphaFold, the thing that made it work where others failed, was that it didn't just look at one sequence. It sort of used a cheat code.
I like a good cheat code. What was it?
It used evolutionary history, specifically something called multiple sequence alignments, or MSAs.
Okay, break that down for me.
So imagine you have your protein sequence, and you want to know which parts touch each other when it's all folded up. It's hard to guess. So AlphaFold goes into this massive database and finds thousands of similar sequences from other animals.
Evolutionary cousins. Like a family photo album to see if everyone has the same nose.
A better one. It's looking for a buddy system. Let's say residue A and residue B are really far apart in the linear sequence, but in the final 3D structure, they need to be Velcroed together to hold the protein in its shape.
Okay, so they physically have to touch.
Right. Now, over millions of years, if residue A happens to mutate from, say, a positive charge to a negative charge,
Then residue B has to mutate to a positive charge to keep that Velcro connection working.
precisely. If it doesn't, the protein falls apart, the organism dies, and we don't see that version in the database. That's coevolution. If I move, you move. AlphaFold scanned those MSAs for those correlated mutations to guess which parts were close in 3D space.
So it was using history to solve a geometry problem.
That's the perfect summary, and the math reflected that. You mentioned hearing about equivariance?
Yes, SE3 equivariance. You know I break out in hives when you use acronyms with numbers and brackets.
Simple, I promise. SE3 just refers to 3D space, rotations and translations. Equivariance just means the physics has to make sense no matter how you look at it. If I hand you a coffee cup and you rotate it 90 degrees, the handle also rotates 90 degrees.
The cup doesn't turn into a teapot just because I spun it around.
Exactly. The shape is invariant. AlphaFold's core architecture, this thing called the Evoformer block, was literally hard-coded to respect those laws of geometry. It was a physics engine that used evolutionary curve notes to build a statue.
Okay, building a statue. I like that. It makes sense for proteins. They are, for the most part, solid objects. So here's my question. Why can't we just feed the genome into the Evoformer? Just say, here's a bunch of DNA, go find the coevolution.
Because the genome isn't a statue,
Yeah.
and the scale is just, it's on another planet.
Scale. I mean, DNA is just a long string, proteins are strings. What's the big difference?
Proteins are short strings. A really big protein might be, what, a couple thousand letters long? The human genome is 3 billion letters. But it's not just the length, it's the context you need to make a decision.
Give me a number.
1 megabase. 1 megabase. That's the input window for AlphaGenome. It looks at 1 million letters of DNA at a time.
A million? Why on earth do you need a million letters of context just to decide if one gene is turned on? That seems wasteful.
Because the switch that turns on a gene, it's called an enhancer, might be located 500,000 letters away from the gene itself.
That seems like terrible design. That's like having the light switch for your kitchen in your neighbor's garage down the street.
It's biological spaghetti code.
Yeah.
But it works because the DNA physically loops around in 3D space to bring them together. And if you look at the data, 99% of these enhancer gene pairs are found within that 1 megabase distance. So if you want the model to learn the logic, if switch A is on, then light bulb B turns on. You need a lens wide enough to see both the garage and the kitchen at the same time.
Okay, I see the problem. AlphaFold looks at a single machine. AlphaGenome is looking at a massive city grid.
And it's not just predicting one thing. AlphaFold spits out one structure. AlphaGenome is what we call multimodal. It predicts thousands of tracks.
Tracks?
Yeah, think of them as channels on a music mixing board. One track is gene expression level, another is chromatin accessibility, basically how tightly packed the DNA is. Another is splicing. It's predicting all of these things at the same time for different cell types.
And I noticed something in the notes here. It dropped the MSAs. It's not using that evolutionary history trick anymore.
Correct, and that is a huge conceptual pivot. We're not looking for ancient conserved shapes. We're trying to read the local language of regulation. We need to spot motifs, tiny patterns in the sequence and long-range rules that define what a cell is doing right now, not millions of years ago.
So if you throw out the Evoformer and the MSAs, what do you replace them with? How do you even process a million letters of code without, melting your GPU?
You compress it. And this is where we really move from geometry into signal processing. AlphaGenome uses a backbone inspired by what are called UNet architectures.
UNet. I've heard that name in image processing, right?
Yeah.
For things like medical scans.
Exactly. Imagine you have a super high-res photo and you want to understand what's in it. You don't analyze every single pixel individually at first. You use an encoder to downsample it. You squeeze the image to make it smaller. But as you do that, you increase the depth of the information.
It's like turning a massive raw photo into a tiny thumbnail, but that thumbnail somehow knows it's a picture of a cat.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. AlphaGenome takes that 1 megabase sequence, which is at 1 base pair resolution, and runs it through a series of 1D convolutional layers. It squeezes the length down step by step, from 1 base pair resolution all the way down to a 128 base pair resolution.
So you're basically blurring the image.
You're trading space for meaning. It starts with just 4 channels A, C, T, G. By the time it hits the bottom of the UNet, what we call the bottleneck, it has compressed the sequence length, but expanded the channels to 1,536 features.
So for every little chunk of DNA, it now has over 1,500 different notes or descriptors about what's going on there.
Exactly. And this bottleneck is where the real magic happens. Once the data is all compressed like that, the model switches to a transformer.
Ah, the transformer, of course.
Yeah.
The buzzword of the decade. We can't escape it.
But here it has a very specific job. Remember that light switch in the neighbor's garage?
A distant enhancer, yeah.
The transformer uses self-attention to connect those dots. It looks across the entire compressed representation, that full 1 megabase context, and says, hey, this pattern over here at the start is paying very close attention to that pattern way over at the end.
So the convolutions are reading the local words, and the transformer is understanding the sentence structure across the whole chapter.
Beautifully put. But then, of course, you have a problem. You've compressed everything down to understand the logic. But your output needs to be precise. You have to predict exactly where a gene starts or exactly where DNA gets cut.
Right. You can't output a blurry thumbnail if you're trying to do precision medicine. You can't just tell a surgeon to cut somewhere on the left.
So you need a decoder. That's the other side of the U shape in the UNet. It upsamples the data back to the original resolution, combining that high-level logic from the transformer with all the fine-grained details it saved from the encoder.
It's decompressing the MP3 back into a perfect WAV file.
And this is where we find one of my favorite little bits of mathematical elegance in this whole thing, the outer sum magic.
Okay, you promised me elegance. Don't let me down.
So one of the many things AlphaGenome predicts is the contact map. It's a 2D grid that shows which parts of the DNA are physically touching each other in 3D space.
A bit like AlphaFold's pair view.
Similar idea. But AlphaGenome's input is a 1D sequence. How do you efficiently turn that linear string into a 2D grid without doing a massive, computationally insane pairwise calculation for every single combination?
I assume you don't just multiply everything by everything. That would take forever.
You use the outer sum operation. Mathematically, for any two positions, I and j, the value at that intersection on the grid, we'll call it Zij, is just the vector at I plus the vector at j.
That's it. You just add them.
You just add them. It's shockingly simple, but it's incredibly effective. It creates a 2D representation that captures the interaction potential between any 2 points derived directly from their linear features. It's elegant.
It feels like cheating again. But hey, if it works.
Oh, it works remarkably well. But there's one area where simple math wasn't quite enough. We need to talk about splicing.
Ah, splicing. This is the editing room floor of the cell.
Exactly.
Right.
Your DNA has exons, the useful parts, and introns, the junk in between. To make a protein, the cell copies the DNA into RNA, then it has to cut out all the introns and paste the exons together.
It's a film splice. You take the good scenes together and throw the rest on the floor.
But predicting exactly where to make those cuts is incredibly hard. The donor site, the start of the cut, and the acceptor site, the end of the cut, can be thousands of letters apart. And this isn't a fuzzy interaction like an enhancer. It's a precise digital operation. You cut here and you paste there.
So how does AlphaGenome handle that precision?
It uses a specialized part of the model with something called ROP, rotary positional embeddings.
Whoa, hold on. You said we left geometry behind. Now we're rotating things again.
I knew you were going to catch that. This is different. This isn't rotating atoms in 3D space like AlphaFold. This is rotating information in the complex plane.
You're losing me.
Yeah.
Why do we need imaginary numbers to cut a piece of RNA?
Think about distance. If I want the model to know that a donor site is exactly 500 base pairs away from an acceptor site, I need a way to encode 500 that works no matter where we are in the whole genome. Most positional encodings are absolute. They just say, I am at position 1 million. But ρp encodes position as a rotation angle.
A rotation angle.
Yeah, imagine a clock hand. If you move the hand forward by 5 minutes, it rotates 30 degrees. Doesn't matter if that clock started at 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock, the change in angle is always 30 degrees for those 5 minutes.
So it preserves the relative distance.
Exactly. By rotating some key vectors in the complex plane, the math works out so that the attention score depends only on the relative distance between 2 points. It lets the model perfectly understand how far apart 2 splice sites are, no matter where they sit in that giant 1 megabase window.
That is actually pretty cool. It's using the math of circles to measure distance on a straight line.
It's a brilliant bit of linear algebra to solve a biological spacing problem.
Okay, I'll give you the math. It's elegant. But I'm the challenger. I have to ask. So what? We have this fancy UNet, rotating complex numbers, a million letters of context. What does this actually do for a patient?
This brings us to the real killer app of AlphaGenome, Variant Effect Prediction, or VEP.
VEP. Predicting what happens when the code breaks.
Precisely. We all carry thousands of mutations. Most are harmless, some cause disease. The big problem has always been that most disease-associated variants are in the non-coding genome, the dark matter. They aren't in the protein itself, they're in the switches.
Back to the regulatory code.
Right. AlphaFold can't help you there. If the mutation is in an enhancer, the protein structure is totally fine. It just never gets built, or gets built at the wrong time. AlphaGenome can predict the impact of changing a single letter, an A to a T, anywhere in that million base pair window.
Give me a concrete example.
The sources talk about the TAL1 oncogene. It's a gene involved in leukemia. There are known non-coding variants near TAL1 that drive cancer. AlphaGenome accurately pinpoints the mechanisms of these variants. It can actually see how a single letter change creates a new accidental binding site for a protein.
Which then flips the switch on.
And drives the cancer. The numbers are impressive. It matches or exceeds the state-of-the-art on 25 out of 26 different evaluations for this kind of prediction.
That's a scorecard you'd put on the fridge. But is it fast enough to actually use in a clinic? These big models are usually slow.
That's the other big innovation here, distillation.
I saw that. Student and teacher models. How is that different from what AlphaFold did?
AlphaFold used what's called noisy student self-distillation. It basically trained on its own predictions to get better. AlphaGenome does something called ensemble distillation.
Strength in numbers.
Sort of. They trained these absolutely massive teacher models, huge, expensive versions that learn from all the raw data. Then they trained a much smaller, faster student model just to mimic the teachers.
So the student isn't learning from nature directly, it's learning from the experts who already did.
Exactly. And because of that, the student model is incredibly efficient. It takes less than 1 second on a standard NVIDIA H100 GPU to score a variant across all of those thousands of tracks.
Hey, wait, less than a second?
Less than a second. To predict expression, splicing, chromatin, all of it.
That changes the game for diagnostics. You could screen a patient's entire non-coding genome for regulatory breaks in an afternoon.
That's the dream. It's moving this from a pure research tool to a potential clinical workhorse.
Okay, let's wrap this up. We've gone on a real journey here. We started with the solve problem paradox.
The realization that folding the proteins was just step one, building the hardware.
We moved through the tech stack. We went from AlphaFold, which was all about Euclidean geometry, heavy atoms, and cheating with evolutionary history,
To AlphaGenome, which treats biology as a signal processing problem. It uses 1D convolutions to compress the signal, transformers to connect the long-range dots, and this beautiful rotational math to handle the precision of splicing.
It really feels like we moved from just looking at the machine to actually reading the user's manual.
That's the perfect way to frame it. But I want to leave you with one final thought.
Go for it.
We've been talking about these as two separate eras, the structure era and the regulation era. But biology, it doesn't work in these clean silos. The fact that we need these two totally different types of math means that structure is a geometry problem and regulation is a language problem.
But they're both happening in the same cell at the same time.
Exactly. The fact that we need totally different architectures, Evoformers versus UNets for the same organism, suggests we're just scratching the surface of how these systems are integrated.
So what's the next deep dive then?
Well, think about the loop. AlphaGenome predicts the regulation, which tells you how much of a protein gets made. AlphaFold tells you what that protein looks like. But what do many proteins do?
They go back and bind to the DNA to regulate other genes. The protein becomes the regulator.
It's a closed loop. So what happens when we try to connect the output of AlphaGenome as the input for AlphaFold, and vice versa? What happens when we finally build a model that understands the geometry and the signal processing at the same time?
You tell me the sequel is going to be even more complicated?
I'm telling you, the sequel is where life actually happens.